too.
You too.
I hope you're well.
I'm very good. But I listen to you every morning. So for me, it's never been forever.
Oh, great. So it's nice to have you on the line. First, let's start from the issue of the import declaration forms.
Mm-hmm.
Can there be any explanation for what the minister has detected aside criminality?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the import declaration form, you see, like the name suggests, very, very self-explanatory. Somewhere by the close of 1980s and between 1980s and the 1990s, trade, like they say, is from Adam. And if you want to do it across borders, then you find barriers and difficulties, some genuine, some self-inflicted, some regulatory, and then others too, they come about unexpected. Now, these levels of barriers, whether intentionally put there or accidentally occurring, at the end of the day, reflect as cost to the trader, to the manufacturer, and to the nations involved. Of course, there are intermediaries, carriers. So any form of barrier that impedes the free flow of trade occasions cost. It's just as simple as that. Okay, so you realize that African nations decided to, of course, with the intervention of the Bretton Woods institutions. When I mention Bretton Woods institutions, see the IMF and the World Bank and their downline repositories like the World Customs Organization, the World Trade Organization, and all of that. Their mission was to set in place instruments that will facilitate trade. Okay, because trade has always traditionally been between the affluent north and the developing south. So for them, when they manufacture, their outlook is that trade, whatever they have produced, must get to the consumer with not too much problem. Of course, the receiving countries will also want to realize what is coming in. Okay, monitor foreign exchange outflows and then strengthen trade statistics. So the middle point was that if you know what is coming in beforehand, then you can prepare to have the outcome in stabilizing your revenue, monitoring your foreign exchange outflows, and strengthening your trade statistics. Okay, so the import declaration form between these times was introduced as an instrument. As the name suggests, if you want to go buy anything cross-border, that is, you want to engage in international trade, you will have to file on the trade document that alerts government that you want to bring X amount of goods in at this quantity, at this price. Okay, so that customs will be aware, the trade ministry will be aware, and the statistical service will be aware, and everybody. Now, this is like a platform that aggregates every trade activity so the nation can be properly informed as to what to allow in and what not to allow in, and what is coming in and how it affects even our domestic production, so that trade can inform government as to what policies should be put in place. So in short, Senna, this is what the import declaration form was put in place to achieve.
And okay, so exactly what do you declare on that form?
Okay, so if you pick an average import declaration, you know by the time you have the intention to import, you may not have the actual invoice. So the pro forma, if it is available, you put it there. At least you would have known the quantities of the item that you want to import. And then you would have known what item. In fact, that even is the first thing that you think about. What item? That is the description. Once you do that, it triggers every other participating government agency's antenna as to what they must look out for. In fact, that is the intent of this solution. So customs will have to flag it and prepare for how much is to be expected. The Bank of Ghana will have to flag it and see how much outflows will have to be prepared for your importation. Let's say if the Standards Authority will have to ensure standards. If it is a commodity that requires Standards Authority's intervention, then they also know what kind of preparations to put in place in anticipation of your import. So will Food and Drugs, EPA, Atomic Energy, all of them. Okay, so will all of them be prepared to see what kind of interventions and what kinds of resources will have to be deployed in anticipation of your imports.
And that includes the monies you are paying.
That includes the money that will be involved in that international endeavor. You know, because we cannot print dollars, you only have to go to your bank, who also takes from the central bank. And there must be a certain balancing act. That is why the Bank of Ghana is so interested in what is being genuinely brought into this country and what is being paid for genuinely. Probably that explains the aspect of the minister's anxiety over outflows that is not balancing the act. There is observation.
And this is a matter that they said they're still going through. But in fact, I just spoke to Samson Asaki Awingobe. So two things he drew attention to.
Yeah.
Yes. So are those possible explanations for what the minister is worried about?
Okay. You know, a lot of the time we have this island solution. And when it is suggested to us, mostly by our interaction with these international organizations, we have to nuance it to reflect local situations. Okay. Now, the process, as I've explained to you all this, does not happen like that on the ground. So let me give you a typical example. You have an intention to import. So you go onto the repository, the IDF repository, and you use your pro forma to file your note. And then what happens? There must be a certain balancing act between your intention and what actually comes in. That is one point. If what you intended is what came in, we check you out. Now we have customs who will now intervene to say that, let's say you imported something and per your declaration you put $100,000 at the cost and freight of maybe $3,000. Now it gets into town and customs has a unit of valuation which disagrees with your value. They jack it up to maybe 200,000 and jack the freight up to let's say 3,500 or 4,000. These two elements, that is the cost and the freight, is going to automatically affect the insurance component. And our duty is calculated based on cost, insurance, and freight. Now, if you are not able to contend these jack-up prices with customs, immediately you realize that you have had over 100% jump of what you intended to pay to like what you wanted to take from Bank of Ghana, and as about for that reason, what you're going to pay back to the system and what the statistics of that trade records. So, Sana, you appreciate the difficulty here. Now, this person who is going to now conclude his transaction on the basis of the jacked up prices, if he is to remit, you could see that there's going to be an imbalance between what he originally declared as the import on the import declaration form and what the end game has been like. So I agree with Aswaki when he talked about nuances in place. Okay. So do I agree with the minister too that there could be possible abuse of the system. And these happen because the intendment of this process requires a certain central management approach where the state agencies, if you look at the safe framework that the World Customs Organization put in place, there's supposed to be a customs to customs conversation. That is the exporting customs and the importing customs. And there's supposed to be a customs to business conversation too. And then the third dimension is customs to the participating government agencies. There must be a network, a flow of information, communication link must be established between them. The question we want to ask is that happening? If that is not happening, this is where you have the disjoint. So it will take a certain time, the lapse of a certain time, for people to now come do due diligence and realize the rot in the system. But if we are taking on these solutions, we will have to take it on holistically, not take it on in silos and then create problems for us.
I guess in the immediate, let's say in the moment, at least there's an investigation ongoing. So when it comes to the matter of whether the problem was valuation disagreements that drove up the prices, whether you are buying on credit or you are buying long term, maybe you pay the money ahead and are taking the goods, all of that. If you're doing an investigation, the person should be in the position to prove all of that, should they not?
The person should be in the position to do this, but don't forget that we have migrated from the GCNet and the West Blue system onto ICOPS, and it was messy. Okay, now, but fine. I am a bit comforted when the minister talked about. I mean, his reporting time was from 2020. I just hope and pray that people are not unnecessarily caught up in the migration turmoil, the turmoil that happened during the migration. In this country, you realize our very bad culture of documentation. If the state itself, as a result of this migration, can lose a lot of data like this, how much more the citizenry? So for me, this is a grave issue, and if we want to solve it or attempt to solve it, there's always a solution. But the question is, will those who are looking for the solutions look to the right area, or will just maybe bundle our ways through and maybe solve it half-heartedly and wait for the next chaos.
So you're expecting that the minister is thorough with these investigations and also tries to address, if there are some systemic issues, deal with all those?
You see, by the close of 2016, I can tell you that there was a structure in place. If you have heard me talk about the governance structure of the ecosystem that superintends our international trade, there is a component that we call the governance structure that reflects what everybody who is a participator in the space. Okay, we had this in place by the fall of 2016. Unfortunately, with the new king, new law approach, this structure was scrapped. So, trust you, Mr. I am not particularly surprised that we are reporting something like this today, because I used to belong to the technical committee of the single window, and the single window committee. This is the central spine that is a repository of our trade document, which per the definition of the single window environment, every other participatory agency will have to suck from or take data from. Now, if we have this central repository, it makes it easy for reports at every now and then to be discussed. If this were around, we would have arrested this problem long before it festering onto this point. Okay, because I remember those days, reports will come, we'll discuss the report and see what must be retweaked and the risk engine, what components must be put back into the risk engine. And we had Bank of Ghana present on that committee. So if IDF anomalies have been detected way back, can you imagine the number of years? And we have sat down until now. At this point, I just pray that we will do the right thing so that people don't fall prey genuinely, to a genuine process of investigation and fair charges. I really, really pray that we'll get it done and get it done well.
And let me conclude on another thing that the minister has admitted struggling with, is with customs revenue. He suspects that there may be things going at the port that is actually taking revenue away from the government and the people of Ghana that he needs to address. Are there issues at the port that may be leading to serious leakages of revenue?
Senna, you see something. Once again, I reference the single window technical committee that was part of the governance structure that had to be in place to make sure that these solutions that we have put in place will be refined as we go along. Okay, but after it was dismantled, a lot of the processes that we have in the port are in silos, even though we still have a central repository, the integrated customs management system. Okay. Now, when you talk about leakages, it has to do with operational issues. Okay. And I can tell you on authority, it is horrible. It is horrible. The operational synergies are just not there. And it's almost like a free for all. So if the minister is mindful of revenue, I mean, a lot of things could be impacting revenue, one of which is the readjustment of the exchange rate. It has helped a lot. Definitely, it will bring down revenue, because if you are expecting to multiply a 14.6 by a certain factor and it's hovering between 10 and 11, 12 now, that is a straightforward reduction. But aside of this, there are certain practices that are happening within the port now, which, like as really what SM will say, a higher crown, you know. But if we really want to block loopholes, they know. The security agencies in there, they know where the loopholes are. I just pray that people will not get sucked into the loopholes that are available and just numb everybody.
I see. So there's a problem to be addressed.
There is big one. Donald Trump will say bigly.
I see. and this is you're saying this is causing serious hemorrhage, leakages of revenue.
Of course, because see, if it is very scientific for you to net off the effect of the exchange rate. I mean the strong show of the city. It is very scientific for you to net it off or identify it. Throughput, as we have been reported to, has gone up significantly. Okay, now you want to see what is happening in the space of transit. You want to see how, for suspense regime items, how they are properly being exited. Okay, transit is one of them. How are they being properly exited? Are they exiting? If you have transit good that is going to Niger, for which reason duty, you are not expecting duty to be paid. And it turns out that goods that are supposed to be transited for which duties have not been collected ends up in the country. What do you think will happen? And if people see this as a loophole and they exploit it, of course it will affect. But these ones, you are not going to be able to scientifically determine its effect. You will just see that there's a shortfall in revenue collection. If people are serious for this problem to be solved, it can be solved. But if we want to play the usual hanky-panky, oh, we know this one, oh, this one is person, that kind of thing, then I'm afraid the loophole will just become maybe a sinkhole, and we'll also suffer the consequence.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure, sir.
Kwabena Ofosu Appiah is a student of international trade and also former president, Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, joining us on the line on this matter. We'll turn to another issue quickly, but we have to take a break first. That issue has to do with the arrears. So government inherited plenty money. So